All right, guys, welcome back after that short break. Now, let's quickly put all of what we've said previously into practice. So now we'll be looking at cost price and selling price as well as break-even analysis. Now, let's look at the first example. I'm saying here, Luke decides to set up a store selling bunny chows. He sells the bunny chows at 15 Rand each. It cost him 5 Rand to make a bunny chow plus 500 Rand to rent a store. So question 1.1, write down a formula to represent Luke's total income. All right, so remember, if I look at this, we want to know the total income. All right, so I'm just going to write it as income. So how will we get the income? Remember, he's selling the bunny chows at 15 Rand each. So therefore, I'm going to say income equals 15 Rand multiplied by the number of bunny chows. Okay, I'll write that down. So that will be how we'll calculate this income, right? So 15 Rand per bunny chow that's going to sell. Then the second question, write down a formula, again, to represent this time around Luke's total expenses. Okay, so now let's look at what his expenses will consist of. So his total expenses, I'm going to read it again. It cost him 5 Rand to make a bunny chow. That's his variable expenses, plus 500 Rand to rent a stall. So that will be his fixed expenses, right? So therefore, I'm going to say expenses equal 5 Rand multiply by the number of bunny chows. And then I also, remember this time, I have to add the 500 Rand as the fixed expense. So in all, to get his total expenses, I'll take the 5 Rand selling price, multiply by the number of bunny chows, right? Or not selling price, that's actually his cost price. Okay, let's look at another question. Right, now I'm saying Luke decides to set up a store selling bunny chows. He sells the bunny chows at 15 Rand each. I'm just repeating the whole scenario to you again. It cost him 5 Rand to make a bunny chow plus 500 Rand to rent the store. So now 1.3, complete the table below that represents Luke's income and his total expenses. Same scenario, so this time now in table form, we need to see how much he will have to pay, but also how much he will gather selling these bunny chows. So if you look at this, I'm going to start with the total income, right? So number of bunny chows, 0. So if he's not selling any bunny chows, how much will he be expected to gather from that? Obviously, that will be 0 Rand. Now, if it's no sales, there will be no income, right? So now we are saying, secondly, if he sells 50 bunny chows, remember the selling price here is 15 Rand. So therefore, what will happen? I'll say 50 multiplied by 15 Rand. So that will give me 750 Rand. And remember, the income is indicated in Rands, right? Then, what will happen if he will sell 100 of these bunny chows? So I'll type in 100 multiplied by 15. So that means you'll have an income of 1,500 Rand. And guys, listen, you have to work with me so that you make sure you get the same answer. And then lastly here by the income, let's look. What will happen if Luke will sell 150 of these bunny chows? That will come to an income of 2,250 Rand. So I hope that's clear. So what did I do? I took the number of bunny chows and I multiplied that by the price per bunny chow. That means the selling price, right? Now let's quickly look at the total expenses. Remember, if I look at what is presented, it cost him 5 Rand to make this bunny chow. Then he must pay rent for the stall of 500 Rand. So therefore, even if he does not sell any bunny chow, his total fixed cost here or expense will be 500 Rand. And that's towards the rental of the store. Okay, so now let's move on to the next one. If Luke sells 50 of these bunny chows, so remember it cost him 5 Rand. So I'll say 5 multiplied by the 50 bunny chows plus the fixed cost, and remember to add the fixed cost, that will give me 750 Rand. Okay, moving now to 100. So again, it cost him 5 Rand, so I'll type in 5, multiply by the 100 bunny chows. Then I still have to add the 500 Rand for the rental. That will take me to 1,000 Rand. And then lastly, if you sell 150 of these bunny chows at a cost price of 5 Rand, that will give you 750 plus the fixed cost of 500 Rand. That should give you 1,250. So already we can see that the break-even point will be here. Right, looking at it carefully, when he sells 50 bunny chows, his income as well as expenses will equate to 750 Rand. Okay, now question 1.4. It says, draw a graph of Luke's total income and total expenses for his bunny chow stand. And then also importantly, so label the break-even point as A. Okay, now table here is already completed like we did in the previous slide. Now we only have to go and plot the points on our graph. I'm going to start with the income, okay, and I'm going to say the first point here, ordered number pair is 0. If we don't sell any bunny chows, our income will be 0. So therefore, it will be the first point plotted there, right? If he sells 50 bunny chows, remember here, number of bunny chows, and this is our cost in Rand that we see here on our y-axis. Okay, so now I'm looking for 50 bunny chows. So that will be here, we agree, right? Between 40 and 60. So there if I go, if I sell, or Luke sell 50 bunny chows, his total income will be 750 Rand. So I'm going to start here, go all the way up. So 750 will be more or less there, right? Between 500 and 1,000 Rand if I look at the cost. Then next up, if Luke sells 100 bunny chows, I go to number of bunny chows, find 100 on my x-axis, right? And I go all the way up. The income should be 1,500, so therefore I'm going to plot that point right there. Then, if Luke sells 150 bunny chows, so that will be between 140 and 160. Right, so that means his income will be 2,250. So I go all the way up. And 2,250 will be halfway between 2,000 and 2,500 Rand. So I hope that makes sense. Now you take your ruler and you will combine these dots. Remember, yours will form a straight line, and obviously this will continue the more he will add up selling. Okay, so that is the income graph. And I'll quickly label that as I so that you know that is our income. Then, now I'll look at the total expenses, right? So remember we said, even though he won't sell any bunny chow, there's still a cost related, which is his fixed cost. That will be 500 Rand. So I'm looking at this part here now, okay? So the starting point for the expenses will be 500 Rand. So I plot that. The ordered number pair is 0 and 500. Then, if Luke sells 50 of these bunny chows, his expected expenses will be 750 Rand. So let's find 50 again, okay? And I go, there's 50, and I go and I plot the point there, okay, of 750 Rand. Then, if I move on to 100 of these bunny chows, his expense now will be 1,000 Rand. So let's find 100. There's 100. And then we have to find 1,000. So there we go. That will be 1,000 Rand. And lastly, if he sells 150 bunny chows again, more or less they're in the middle, and then our expense will be 1,250. So that will be around about there. Now we're going to plot our points, or we already plotted the points. We will now have to combine them, right? And this will be our expense graph. I hope that makes sense. Guys, now remember we have to label this A, so therefore I go and I indicate this is the break-even point, and I labeled it A. Let's quickly look at another sum. It says, how many bunny chows must Luke sell in order to break even? Now looking at this, and based on what we've done just now, remember there's the break-even point, and we indicated he must sell 50 bunny chows, right? And then, last question here, calculates Luke's profit or his loss if he sells 100 bunny chows, right? How do we calculate profit or loss again? Profit or loss equals income minus expenses, right? So we can either use calculations or we can read from the graph. Remember, this is our income graph, and this is our expenses, right? So now here I'm just going to substitute now. We are saying 100 bunny chows is here. So what is his income? Income in this case will be, so I go, see that's where they intersect. Income will be 1,500 rand minus what is his expenses for 100 bunny chows. There's 100 expenses here. So I go all the way to the left. Expense will be 1,000 rand. So therefore 1,500 minus 1,000 will give you 500 rand. That's a positive value. So we can conclude that he's making a profit. Okay, I hope that is clear to you guys. Let us quickly take a short advert break. After the break, we'll continue with more sums. See you now.